We've got a massive pile of sources today, and they all point to a show that's, well, it's doing something that I don't think anyone in traditional media really predicted.
Not at all.
We're talking about a television series that hasn't just broken box office records usually say for, Hollywood blockbusters,
Hmm.
but according to its lead actor, it is literally inspiring profound spiritual conversion in people who were, and this is the key, previously lifelong atheists. We are talking, of course, about The Chosen.
It has a genuinely unique cultural footprint. And you're right about the sources. They cover everything from its very specific and unorthodox production history all the way to these claims of spiritual efficacy.
And now, this is the new part, it's ambitious and really strategic expansion into an animated universe for children.
That's right, a show called The Chosen Adventures.
So for this deep dive, we really want to go past just the surface facts. We want to try and understand how a show that's centered on the life of Jesus of Nazareth managed to achieve this unprecedented scale.
And why its model, the funding, the production, the distribution, has been so spectacularly successful where so many other faith-based projects have, well, they've stalled.
Exact.
So our mission today is really to distill the surprising facts about how this show is managing to engage with younger generations, I mean, we're talking Millennials and Gen Z, to get them to look at the Bible in a completely new light.
And crucially, we're going to meticulously detail the educational structure, the goals, and, the specific theological lessons that are embedded in this new spin-off for kids, The Chosen Adventures.
This is really about understanding the strategy behind a media empire that's being built on faith.
Okay, so let's start with the live-action original, because I think the success there, it truly sets the stage for everything else that follows.
It absolutely does.
When you look at the origins of The Chosen, what immediately stands out is not just that it's successful, but how it got there. It was achieved entirely outside of the traditional media gatekeepers.
That is the structural heart of the whole story. The Chosen began back in 2019, and it was initially launched as a crowdfunded project.
On the VidAngel platform, right?
Yeah, exactly, on VidAngel. And this wasn't just, a convenient way to raise money. It was a very deliberate strategy to circumvent the entire studio system.
Which means they could maintain complete creative control.
Complete control over the biblical text and, most importantly, the narrative. There were no studio notes about making it more palatable or changing a character's arc.
Let's talk more about that crowdfunding mechanism, because this wasn't just a simple Kickstarter campaign, was it? Our sources say this became the highest-grossing crowdfunded media project of all time.
Of all time. And by a significant margin. The initial goal was substantial, and they met it by inviting the audience to become direct stakeholders in the project's success.
So you weren't just donating, you were investing.
In a way, yes. It created this immediate, incredibly dedicated fan base who felt a real sense of ownership. They weren't just viewers, they were part of the team that made it happen.
And using a platform like VidAngel was a smart move. They were already known for kind of navigating these tricky waters of distribution for faith-based content.
A very smart move. It established a direct line to their core audience, completely bypassing the typical studio executive who might demand creative changes or, frankly, just not understand the market for high-quality religious drama.
And the sources are very clear on this next point, that success, it didn't stay contained within that initial niche audience for very long.
No, it rapidly achieved what you could call platform ubiquity. It's highly, highly unusual for a series of this nature to get this level of broad distribution.
I mean, just look at the list. It's aired on the CW.
A broadcast network.
Right. Then it's streamed on Netflix, on Peacock, YouTube, and it's currently available on Prime Video.
Yeah.
That's almost market saturation.
It's a brilliant dual strategy. Use the initial crowdfunding to guarantee their independence, and then they license the show to these major secular streamers to maximize their reach and, of course, to monetize it.
The key, and our sources repeat this over and over, is the quality. The show is consistently described as not cheesy, boring, preachy, or irrelevant.
And that phrase is the critical difference maker. That's what allows it to compete head-to-head with secular dramas on platforms like Netflix. It doesn't feel like homework.
That distinction, the quality, is what let it make the jump from streaming to the big screen. The box office records here are just astounding.
They really are.
When they premiered key episodes in cinemas, starting with season 3, the sources note the show literally outsold multiple big-budget Hollywood films on opening weekend.
And this is where you see the strategic genius at play. They didn't just release it. They transformed television viewing into a theatrical, communal, and for many, a spiritual event.
It's a totally different viewing experience.
Totally. A typical Hollywood film spends hundreds of millions on marketing just to get people out of their homes. The Chosen mobilized its established, deeply invested fan base, many of whom, remember, felt like they literally funded the project, to show up in force.
And that creates its own marketing engine.
It creates this viral word-of-mouth energy. It proved to Hollywood that there is a massive, untapped demand for this specific genre of content, as long as it's done well.
So underpinning all this success is its perspective on Jesus. It's based on the Bible, of course, but it shifts the focus pretty significantly from what we've seen before.
Oh, absolutely. Earlier cinematic portrayals, they often focused almost exclusively on either the divine power of Jesus or, his suffering on the cross. Very monolithic portrayal.
Very distant, in a way.
Exactly. The Chosen intentionally explores the life and death of Jesus of Nazareth as seen through the eyes of the people around him.
The disciples, his contemporaries.
The Romans, the Pharisees, the people whose lives are being constantly upended by his presence. This character-driven approach provides an intimacy that makes Jesus and his mission feel, well, relatable and grounded.
The sources confirm that the early seasons 1 through 4, really focused on the recruiting of the disciples, the preaching, and the performing of miracles.
And that action, the gathering of followers and the challenging of the status quo, that naturally drew, as the sources note, ire from various political and religious forces.
Which provides the dramatic tension.
It's essential. This isn't just a series of Bible stories strung together. It's a political and social drama about a growing movement in first-century Galilee that threatens the established order, whether that's the Roman authority or the existing religious hierarchy.
And this brings us to what might be the most remarkable and also the most difficult to quantify claim about the show, its ability to inspire conversion.
Right.
We have this very specific anecdote from Jonathan Rumi, the actor who plays Jesus, that he shared during an appearance on The View.
He told a very personal, very striking story about, of all things, checking his Instagram DMs.
So what did he say happened?
He mentioned receiving 2 separate messages from 2 different people, both of whom, he said, happened to have been lifelong atheists and never had any interest in God.
That's a powerful story, for sure. But from a media consumption perspective, how much weight can we really put on a claim that's based on 2 unsolicited Instagram DMs?
That is the right question to ask.
I mean, do the source materials give us any wider, verifiable metrics to support this massive claim of spiritual impact?
Well, no. And that's the challenge. The sources don't provide audited statistics on conversions. That would be nearly impossible to track and verify on a global scale.
So the story is more of an illustration.
It functions as a powerful illustration of the show's stated intent and its viral reach. The catalyst, according to Rumi, was simply that someone sent these atheists a link to the show. He said, and I'm quoting, that first episode just kind of grabs hold of you.
So the power isn't in preaching, it's in the drama.
Exactly. The power lies in the show's ability to penetrate these entrenched secular viewpoints, not through a sermon, but through compelling, high-quality human drama.
And the outcome he described was that these viewers, they became interested in the Bible, they started attending church, and ultimately converted to Christianity.
Right. From an analysis standpoint, what this highlights is the profound power of accessible storytelling. By focusing on, say, Simon Peter's financial woes, or Matthew's social awkwardness, their flaws, their complex relationship.
It makes them feel real.
It removes the distance that's often created by academic theology. It offers a human entry point into a faith that many viewers may have previously dismissed as irrelevant or historically inaccessible. If you can relate to Simon Peter's debt, you're more likely to engage with the figure who ultimately changes his life.
And as the main series moves toward its climax, the personal stakes just keep increasing. Season 5 is titled The Chosen, Last Supper,
which sets the inevitable stage for the crucifixion and resurrection.
And this leads us to Jonathan Rumi's preparation for the incredibly intense Season 6, which is scheduled to premiere in 2026.
Rumi spoke very openly about the emotional and psychological commitment that this required. He noted that an actor must always seek the truth in a character and really enter that intense emotional, mental, and psychological space of the story.
And for the crucifixion narrative, that becomes, what did he say? Doubly intense.
Doubly intense. He detailed the personal weight of preparing to portray that kind of torture. He actually said he asked God to, quote, allow me some sense of what that would be like.
That is an extraordinary level of dedication. It goes far beyond what we think of as typical method acting.
It really does. And it reflects the unique production culture of The Chosen, where the spiritual weight of the narrative is completely inseparable from the performance itself.
And what did he say the effect was?
He was very direct about it. He said, "He didn't disappoint, and it's something that I'm still actively processing right now." This insight really confirms that the commitment to authenticity in portraying that sacrifice is paramount to the creative team.
It's an immersive project with profound personal stakes.
And that's what translates into the depth that audiences find so compelling. This framing of the acting process is a fascinating glimpse into their unique culture.
And given that immense spiritual and dramatic weight they're putting on the adult series, it makes perfect strategic sense that they wouldn't just stop there. They need to secure the next generation.
Exactly. The foundation is built. Now it's time to build on top of it.
This is where the strategy shifts, and I think it shifts dramatically. After establishing this dominance in the adult drama space, the franchise pivots directly to capturing the next generation.
They're launching what amounts to the beginning of a chosen cinematic universe.
With an animated spin-off.
Yes. The expansion is called The Chosen Adventures.
Okay.
It's an American animated children's television series, also created by Dallas Jenkins.
Sure.
And it's not a one-off project. This is the first in a planned series of Bible-inspired stories from his company, 5 and 2 Studios.
So they're deliberately building an entire ecosystem around the central narrative and its core values.
A whole ecosystem.
And the production details here, they signal immediate global ambition. It's co-produced by 5 and 2 Studios and a major secular industry player, Amazon MGM Studios.
Right.
Why is that partnership so significant?
Well, the Amazon MGM involvement is critical. It gives the spin-off immediate scale and legitimacy in what is a fiercely competitive children's content market.
Amazon is always looking for new IP.
Always. They're constantly trying to strengthen their library with high-quality, potentially sticky IP. So for them, partnering with a proven phenomenon like The Chosen, which already has a dedicated audience across all age groups, offers them a demographic they might struggle to reach otherwise.
It's a stamp of secular approval.
It is. It ensures the show isn't just relegated to niche, faith-based streaming services. It's on a global stage from day one.
And the inspiration for this animated venture, it actually stems from a very specific moment in the live-action series.
Yes, the origin is charmingly specific. It came from the positive audience reception to the interaction between Jesus and the 2 children, Abigail and Joshua, in Season 1, Episode 3.
Jesus loves the little children.
That's the one. Jenkins recognized that this dynamic really resonated across all ages and offered a pathway to explore a completely different tone.
Jenkins stated that the rationale was that animation allows them to explore a, quote, whimsy and a playfulness.
Something that is inherently challenging to integrate into the intense, often heavy dramatic setting of the live-action series.
You need that playful tone to engage kids.
You absolutely do.
Yeah.
And the overall goals are very clear. Promote the gospel message, foster curiosity about Jesus among children, and importantly, portray Jesus as real, relatable, and life-changing.
So the animation combines faithfulness to scripture
Ensuring the lessons are biblically grounded.
with essential comedic elements.
Most notably, talking animals to maintain high engagement for a young audience.
Let's talk about the structure. The content is built for rapid consumption. 14 episodes, each just 11 minutes long.
And the release strategy was equally strategic.
Yeah.
It was all about maximizing reach across different platforms. It premiered exclusively on Prime Video on October 17, 2025.
Which gave it instant global exposure.
Right. The US, UK, Canada, other regions, all simultaneously. But then, just 2 weeks later, they granted distribution rights to the Christian streaming company Minnow.
So that confirms the dual distribution goal.
It does. Establish secular dominance first on a major platform, then ensure deep penetration into the dedicated faith channels later. Cover all your bases.
And to anchor the universe, they integrated original cast members. We see Jonathan Rumi returning to voice Jesus.
And Elizabeth Kabish as Mary Magdalene, which provides that nice continuity for adult fans who might be watching with their kids.
But they also brought in some serious vocal and comedic talent specifically for the animated relief.
They did. Paul Walter Hauser voices Sheep, Yvonne Orji voices Pigeon, and the singer Jordan Sparks voices a character named Fish.
So this is a real commitment to professional, high-level animation voice work.
Which further elevates the production quality way above what you'd typically find in lower-budget Christian children's programming. This is playing in the big leagues.
Jordan Sparks actually noted she was drawn to the project because of that specific, deliberate blend of entertainment and message.
What did she say?
She said she loves, anytime I can connect what I do for a living acting, humor, with something that infuses the world with a little more Jesus.
And that's really the key takeaway about the atmosphere they've created. It's professional, it's highly entertaining, but it's also overtly serving a spiritual mission.
They're leveraging top-tier talent and resources to create this highly consumable content.
That is explicitly didactic in its purpose. It's designed to teach specific moral and religious lessons to children through the medium of talking animals and humor.
And the success of the live-action show gave them the cultural capital and probably the financial capital to make this blend work on such a high level.
Without a doubt, one success funds the next, more ambitious project.
Okay, so now let's execute the really deep dive into these 14 episodes. This is where we get to analyze the pedagogical strategy.
Exactly. How did Jenkins and his team translate these complex, sometimes abstract theological concepts into actionable, bite-sized, 11-minute lessons for children?
The setup itself is very straightforward. We follow a 9-year-old girl named Abby, her friend Joshua, and their talking animal companions, Shoop and Pigeon, as they encounter Jesus in Galilee.
And the show uses these brief segments to deliver really focused guidance on faith, friendship, God's love, and Jesus' message.
So to make this digestible, we've grouped the 14 episodes into 5 core thematic categories. We're going to slow down and really analyze the mechanism of the teaching, not just give a plot summary.
Sounds good. Let's start with the first group, life lessons and parent-child relationships. These episodes are really about laying the moral foundation for the children by focusing on respect and understanding within the family unit.
The very first episode, Jesus Loves the Little Children, introduces Abby, and she's frustrated because she can't attend school with Joshua because she's a girl.
Which is an immediate, relatable point of unfairness for any modern viewer, but it's also, historically grounded in the culture of the time.
Right. And the brilliance here is how Jesus, who's presented as a carpenter and teacher, addresses her frustration. He doesn't just give her a lecture.
No, he doesn't engage in a direct social critique of first-century gender roles. Instead, he answers her very practical question about wasps.
Wasps.
Yes, wasps. He explains that they're vital because they pollinate the fig trees. He uses this example from the natural order to counsel her on respecting and understanding her parents. The underlying lesson is about trust and acceptance of the roles within the family structure, framed through the concept of order in God's creation.
That theme of obedience and trust is tightened and really tested in the next episode we have in this group, Blind Faith.
Yes, here, Abby directly disobeys her father. She sails alone into the Sea of Galilee. She gets lost. She panics.
And the narrative explicitly links this crisis directly to her previous disobedience.
It's a masterful example of linking sin, crisis, and then resolution. When Abby is lost and she prays for forgiveness, Jesus, who is walking ashore, causes her boat to drift back to safety.
So the miracle is very specific and proportional.
Exactly. It resolves the physical danger, but it also validates the lesson. And then Jesus speaks to her not just as a miracle worker, but as a counselor, stressing the importance of her parents' rules before ensuring she gets home safely for reconciliation. It teaches kids that respecting boundaries is a safety issue, both physically and spiritually.
And then we get an episode that focuses on something I think a lot of parents watching will relate to, parental inadequacy. It's called Father Knows Best.
A great title.
Abby's father, Eli, feels like a failure because he had to leave school at age 10 to become a fisherman.
And this is a really sophisticated lesson on the dignity of work. Eli seeks counsel from his rabbi, who affirms that God has a purpose for everyone. But then Jesus encounters him.
And what's Jesus' advice?
He doesn't tell Eli to go back to school or that he made a mistake. He specifically commends Eli's skills as a fisherman, validating the very work that Eli himself undervalued.
And then he gives parenting advice.
He does. He says the best teachers show people how to learn. So it reframes the whole concept of value. It teaches that academic knowledge isn't the only measure of a person's worth, and that every parent, regardless of their background, can be a teacher within their own family.
Okay, let's move to our second thematic group, spiritual questions and moral guidance. These episodes tackle the more abstract concepts of faith, suffering, and moral decision-making.
And the first one, Give It a Rest, is purely didactic. It's a lesson on the Sabbath. The family is forced to improvise dinner carrots and olive dip because they couldn't get meat and bread before Shabbat began at dusk.
And Abby asks why they have to rest.
And her parents explicitly explain the Genesis creation narrative and why observing the Sabbath is a necessary spiritual practice. It's a clear, concise lesson on the origins and practice of a key faith tradition, all packaged within a relatable, slight family inconvenience.
Then there's the inevitable "Why God" episode. Abby has a terrible day, she loses things, she drops a pie, she even gets a vase stuck on her head.
Classic kids' cartoon predicament.
Exactly. And she expresses that classic existential frustration. Why are all these bad things happening to me?
This whole episode is about the concept of providence. Her mother, Ema, counsels her to bring her difficult things to God. But the animated mechanism for teaching this concept is the talking animals.
So what do?
Pigeon and Ship later observed that all of Abby's mishaps actually created unseen benefits. The dropped pie fed a hungry child, and the delays from the vase incident helped her avoid being forced by a demanding Roman soldier to carry his armor.
So they managed to teach this huge abstract concept that difficult things can serve a greater unseen goodbye using the visual comedy of a vase stuck on a 9-year-old's head.
That is sophisticated pedagogical design. It's brilliant.
And the final episode in this moral category is Vengeance is Whose. This deals with that very human impulse for revenge.
What's the setup?
A girl named Yael breaks Ema's favorite vase, and Abby immediately wants to get even, citing the principle of an eye for an eye.
So this episode dives directly into biblical hermeneutics, which is amazing for a children's show. It's about how to interpret Scripture.
And Jesus has to explain the context.
He does. He explains that the eye for an eye principle was intended for judges and for legal restitution to prevent feuds from escalating. It was never meant for personal vendettas. He counsels forgiveness and making amends instead.
And the resolution is multi-layered.
It is. Abby forgives Yael, Yael apologizes, and then Abby, inspired by this teaching, confesses her own role in the mess to Ema, and she receives grace and forgiveness in return. It's a complete arc of sin, guidance, forgiveness, and reconciliation, all delivered in under 12 minutes.
Incredible. Our third thematic group deals with encounters with Romans and society, which reflects the political realities that really shaped the live-action series.
And this is introduced through a new centurion, Sirius Maximus, who bullies the locals, and his son, Hilarius Maximus.
What a name.
I know. In the episode Little Caesar, Hilarius tries to befriend the local children, but he only knows how to play Roman soldier games. He only knows how to exercise power, not how to be a friend.
And Abby's response to this is fascinating. She doesn't just get mad.
No, she uses role-playing.
Right.
She pretends to be a Roman soldier while Hilarius has to pretend to be a Jewish citizen. She completely flips the power dynamic.
So he can experience what it's like to be on the other side.
Exactly. This simple role-playing exercise acts as a mechanism for teaching empathy and cross-cultural respect. And the episode's resolution is very positive and concrete. Hilarius internalizes the lesson. He starts treating the local citizens better. He returns a cloak he seized. He declines stolen grapes.
So the show doesn't shy away from the political tension.
Not at all. It uses that tension to teach children practical lessons about social responsibility and how to treat others, regardless of their position of power.
That tension is revisited in Even the Pigeons. Pigeon gets injured by Sirius, and the children seek help from a Roman augur.
Can you just briefly contextualize what an augur was for our listener? They might not be familiar with that term.
Of course. An augur was a specialized religious official in ancient Rome. Their job was to interpret the will of the gods by observing natural signs, particularly the behavior of birds, like their flight path or their feeding habits.
And their pronouncements were taken very seriously.
They were. They were used to authorize or block major public actions. So in the context of this episode, the augur refuses to help the injured pigeon because he's only interested in ravens, which are birds with specific significance in Roman divination. He doesn't care about a common injured pigeon.
And this scene uses that historical context for a very sharp moral contrast.
It does. The Roman religious official offers no practical help at all, while Mary Magdalene, the Jewish woman, steps in to compassionately wrap Pigeon's broken wing.
So it clearly emphasizes the theme of compassion over rigid, superstitious, or bureaucratic rules. Mary Magdalene, who is a figure of redemption in the live-action show, demonstrates active charity.
And for the pure comedic payoff, Sheep gets a perfectly timed, humorous revenge by tripping the bullying centurion, Sirius.
Of course he does.
Our fourth thematic group focuses directly on Jesus' teachings and ministry, translating his parables and actions into these accessible animated narratives.
Consider the episode Not What I Imagined. Abby is bored by her Rabbi Josiah's dry sermon, which is derived from the book of Isaiah. She's struggling to concentrate.
This sets up the key contrast of the episode, doesn't it? The traditional, maybe tedious institutional teaching versus a new, dynamic approach.
Precisely. Jesus then arrives to preach. And his sermon immediately interests Abby because he focuses on accessibility. He talks about how everyone can take something new and relevant from Scripture for their own lives, and he alludes to the coming of the Messiah.
So the episode is subtly championing a more accessible style of teaching.
Yes. It doesn't critique the source material, which is Isaiah, but the delivery style. Jesus' approach is exciting, it's personal, and it's immediately relevant, which demonstrates why he was able to draw such large crowds away from the established religious structures of the day.
Then we see a beautiful integration of a famous parable in rocky ground.
Right. In this one, Abby is initially rebuffed by a new elderly neighbor named Dina, and a fig plant that Abby offers as a gift withers and dies.
This is a visual manifestation of the parable of the sower.
It's the seed Abby's friendship falling on rocky ground. Then, after Abby watches Jesus preach the parable of the sower, and she witnesses the miracle of Jesus summoning fish to Simon Peter and Andrew's boat, she's inspired.
The combination of the spiritual insight from the parable and the display of divine power from the miracle encourages her to persist.
She tries again with Dinah, who this time accepts her friendship, and symbolically the little fig plant recovers. The spiritual metaphor is literally externalized into a social success story for a child to understand.
The series also engages with the complexity of miracles in Seeking Signs, Part 1. Abby is frustrated because Jesus healed a leper but hasn't shown her a sign. She basically wants to see some magic tricks.
And Jesus offers some perspective to manage her expectations of the miraculous. He explains that performing miracles is only part of his ministry, not the entire reason for his presence.
That's a crucial lesson in tempering faith, isn't it? It shouldn't rely solely on spectacular events.
It's very important. And the episode ends on this moment of high dramatic tension, with Abby joining a crowd that's gathered to watch Jesus prepare to heal a crippled man. So it builds anticipation for the miracle while ensuring the lesson about perspective is already landed.
And finally, in this group, there's a quiet episode called Lonely But Not Alone. Abby feels isolated and lonely because her entire family and all her friends are busy with their daily tasks.
This is a lesson that's entirely dedicated to internal faith and the concept of God's omnipresence. Jesus encounters her in this specific moment of solitude.
And what does he teach her?
The crucial, quiet lesson about being able to pray to God and feel connected even when you are physically alone. It's a powerful validation of the individual's spiritual relationship, irrespective of social company.
The final thematic category is pure animal origin story and comic relief. It focuses on the show's breakout stars, Sheep and Pigeon, in a two-part episode called You Heard It Here First.
Love the pun.
It's great. This two-parter details Sheep's profound, if comical, trauma. He mistakes being sheared for a lack of love from his shepherd.
This leads him to escape and enter this comedy of errors. He avoids being roasted, he's mocked by other animals, and all this solidifies his bitterness toward humanity. Finally, he gets caught in a trap.
And it's the moment of rescue that really establishes the comedic core of the spin-off.
He is freed from the trap by Pigeon, who befriends with the promise of plentiful food. They become this immediate mismatched duo.
Part 2 then chronicles their journey to Capernaum, detailing Sheep's ongoing mistrust of humans. The key moment, the emotional climax for this sheep,
is when they encounter Abby, who adopts them. And then they eavesdrop on Jesus. Jesus befriends the children, and he physically hugs Sheep.
giving him the sense of affection and acceptance that he craved and resolving his deepest trauma.
So wait, just to be clear, we have Paul Walter Hauser voicing a sheep whose big emotional resolution is getting a hug from Jesus?
That's it.
That blend of a profound, sacred narrative and genuine silliness has to be one of the hardest tightropes to walk in children's media.
Yet they seem to pull it off by making the animals represent these relatable human insecurities like feeling unloved or misunderstood.
Precisely, and that is the sophisticated part of the pedagogical design. They use the low-stakes comedy of the talking animals to process the high-stakes theological and emotional concepts for the child viewer. The sheer volume of theological, moral, and emotional content packed into these 14 11-minute segments confirms that this entire animation project is designed as a direct, highly detailed instructional tool for religious education.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about how the critics and the media generally received this highly ambitious spin-off. Anytime you blend high production value, a massive franchise, and explicit faith-based instruction, you're going to get some varied reception.
That's for sure. The praise centered heavily on the execution and its value within its niche. Reviewers cited it as a family-friendly standout in faith-based animation, and they often favorably compared it to some of the high watermarks in the genre, like VeggieTales.
What specifically earned the highest marks from critics?
Critics universally praised its fidelity to the Bible. The vibrant, colorful animation style, and especially the effective comic relief provided by that talking animal duo, sheep and pigeon.
Paul Walter Hauser and Yvonne Orji received specific praise for their vocal performances.
They did. And reviewers also acknowledged it as an excellent tool for parents who are looking to proactively address their children's questions about the Bible and Christian faith in a modern, engaging format. It really succeeded in its primary goal of being a cartoon companion that teaches faith-based lessons effectively.
But the project, given its scale, also faced some specific structural and creative criticisms. What were the gaps that critics pointed out?
The primary structural critique was the format itself, at a short 11-minute runtime. While it's designed for easy viewing and for a child's attention span,
Right.
critics felt it led to a predictable, almost formulaic story structure. Problem introduced, Jesus teaches, problem resolved. And that could become repetitive over the course of 14 episodes.
I also see a critique in our sources regarding the creative decision to use Israeli accents in the voice cast.
Yes, some reviewers found this choice distracting or, in their view, unnecessary for an animated children's series. It raises a question about how much historical authenticity is required versus how much modern accessibility you want.
It's a fine line, isn't it? Do you prioritize making the characters sound authentic to first-century Judea, or do you prioritize maximum relatability for a global English-speaking audience?
It's a tough creative call to make.
And there were also calls for more historical and cultural context for viewers who might be unfamiliar with the setting.
Absolutely. One reviewer noted that the cameo appearances from the live-action cast like Mary Magdalene were integrated without proper context, which could potentially confuse viewers who are entering the animated series cold.
So what was their suggestion?
They suggested the show would have greatly benefited from an overarching narrator to provide that necessary biblical, historical, and cultural background. It would act as a smoother on-ramp into the world of Galilee for the uninitiated.
Finally, let's address the core question of audience appeal. One reviewer suggested the series actually lacked enough depth and originality to appeal strongly to preteens, the older end of that target demographic. Why did they argue that?
They felt that because of the heavy incorporation of specific Jesus teachings, historical references, and even some inside jokes that reward fans of the live-action show, the series might actually appeal more strongly to religiously minded adults who can appreciate the nuanced instruction.
So the fear is that for an agnostic child, the instruction might outweigh the pure entertainment value.
Exactly. The balance between entertainment and religious instruction is notoriously difficult to get right in a short format. And some critics felt the scale tipped just a little too heavily toward the didactic, which risks, preaching too much to the choir rather than engaging a skeptical newcomer.
That's a truly fascinating tension, a show designed to build the next generation of viewers, but perhaps resonating most deeply with the current generation of adults who appreciate the sophisticated religious pedagogy that's embedded in the story.
It's a very interesting problem to have.
So if we synthesize this entire deep dive, we are looking at a powerful dual narrative.
We really are. On one hand, The Chosen is a revolutionary media enterprise that has achieved unprecedented secular success. It's breaking box office records and establishing ubiquitous distribution through giants like Amazon and Netflix.
And on the other hand, this success is entirely driven by an explicit, unequivocal spiritual mission. The project's creators and its stars publicly assert that the show is a highly successful tool for profound spiritual conversion.
Right. They're claiming to have shifted the beliefs of people who were previously lifelong atheists. It's an incredible claim.
And this mission has now been strategically extended into the children's market with The Chosen Adventures,
Which is a series that is meticulously engineered to serve as a religious education tool. It's translating complex moral guidance and biblical parables from the dignity of non-academic work to the concept of providence and forgiveness into these animated, accessible lessons.
all featuring high-quality voice acting and humor.
Dallas Jenkins himself said he designed the animated series to blend humor, heart, and spiritual truth to make Jesus real, relatable, and life-changing. It's a calculated, comprehensive strategy for capturing the hearts and minds of viewers, spanning every single age demographic.
And this is not the low-budget, often criticized, cheesy content that we might have seen decades ago.
Not at all. This is high-quality, professionally produced, globally distributed media designed explicitly to promote a specific religious worldview.
This shift in quality and reach, it really marks a watershed moment for faith-based media.
The live-action show provides the accessibility for adults. The animated spin-off provides the foundational knowledge for children. It is a calculated and deeply effective model for modern spiritual communication, delivered seamlessly through global streaming infrastructure.
Which leaves us with a truly provocative thought for you to consider as you wrap up this deep dive. Considering The Chosen's massive appeal, its record-breaking success in secular venues, and its stated ability to convert those lifelong atheists, what new role does this kind of highly produced, globally distributed, faith-based entertainment play in bridging the gap between an increasingly secular society and traditional religious tenets?
And fundamentally, given the clear pedagogical intent we've seen in the 14 episodes of The Chosen Adventures, how might the evident commercial and spiritual success of this model influence the way that religious stories and moral education are taught to children globally over the next decade?
Something certainly worth exploring further.